Good morning, everyone. It's Joker, and today we are back with another slime video. And today is the second video in the Heroes Jubilee 33 playlist. Going to take on Normal Battle 2 using, the best win team that you could possibly imagine. Not really, but I mean, these are the scores. I'm not going to work on them anymore. I'm pretty happy with them. If you want to keep on trying, then by all means, have at it. But this video is just to give you an idea. So disclaimers. Use what you got. This video is to give you an idea of what to use, not the absolute law, because your box is going to look different than mine. Please just take this as an example and use what you got. Disclaimer number 2 is that these are the units I use for protection gauge, and these are the units I use for skill point gain. And disclaimer number 3 is don't forget to optimize your magic building in town for wind units, because we're taking on a wind stage. But let's get started. Alright, the first team for Normal Battle 2 is going to be kind of the New Year's team. Mostly, it is the New Year's team. But this time we're not nuking with Rimuru. We're using him for his utility, like we do in Valor Cup, and we're nuking with Milim instead. So we've got Xion, we've got Hinata, and this is essentially going to run like Valor Cup. Like, we're only sending a couple orbs. We're going to benefit off of the orb steal and the extra points and the rainbows. I borrowed this team off of Nature, but he, instead of having Christmas Shizu, had skill-fused Wind Bitch-Ass Dino, because his debuff is 15 points, it lasts for 2 turns, and it turns into an AoE debuff, which works out very well if you're going to nuke with a Wind unit. My Dino is not level 100, so I can't even attempt to skill fuse him. Again, I'm going to shit all over the skill fusion thing in this game. I hate it. I would like to use Dino's skill fusion, but I physically can't unless I want to put shards in them, but that's a different story. Anyways, this is the team. Let's go ahead and get started before I go on to some crazy rant. I already made a video that's going up in like a couple days talking about my top 3 things that I would not change in this game, and I think the first one to talk about is stupid skill fusions. We're going on a rant again. Anyways, team. Video. We're going to swap Rimuru out for Christmas Shizu, because we need Rimuru in the back to turn the stolen Hinata orbs into rainbows on turn 2. So you go away. Shizu comes in. Now she does have type disadvantage, which is unfortunate, but I mean, you don't take that much damage from these guys. We're only sending 3 orbs though, because we want to guarantee that we get 3 Hinata orbs, like that. So we're only sending like the 2 Shizus and the 1 Shinsha orb, instead of sending all 4 blues, but this guarantees that we have 3 to steal, and then we have 6, and we're also going to use the Shizu debuff, which is an AoE debuff for like 15% or something, for 2 turns. Rimuru comes in for Hinata, changes those to rainbows, and then we bring in Milim for Rimuru, which will get her EX ult and a whole bunch of gauge and everything like that, and points. So now we're going to spread the damage out, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 onto the other mushroom, and now we have enough points to use both the Milim and Shinsha buff, and we still need to take down some HP on these guys. So yeah, like Shizu's taking 1 damage, and then we took 528 there, but it's not a lot. If you're trying to min-max it, then you want to take 1 damage across, everybody, but I'm not really going for that RNG. So the Milim buff, the Shinsha buff, call it good. The AoE debuff from Shizu is still active. We're going to use Xion now, change all of them to oranges, but then we're going to swap Shizu away for Rimuru, because he doesn't have any of the buffs, and I don't want to hit everybody maximum power. We want to take that mushroom down, so we're going to send a Milim and a Shinsha there, and then a Shinsha in the middle. So getting them very, very low, but not quite killing, and then 427 across the board. So we're not quite able to do damage cap, because that is 1.4 million, and we're at 1.36, but it is decently good, and the only way for me to make it better would be to bring Dino in with a skill fusion or put dupes into Milim, neither of which I'm really going to do. So that is the strategy that Nature gave me for the New Year's team. Let's move on. Alright, team number 2 is a green team, again with the New Year's Milim, but she's not here as a DPS. We're actually going to nuke with Shizu. So if you don't have Milim, you could certainly bring somebody else. It doesn't really matter. She's just cheap. So we've got Frey, who's going to convert 3 and 3 to 6 green. She's going to give physical allies guaranteed crits. And then we brought Skill Fused Wind Millum, Old Wind Millum, because she gives the alt buff and 30% crit damage for wind allies, which we are going to nuke with the wind ally. The hero for the rewind, New Millum for her buff, Shizu for her nuke, and then Hinata for her element buff. I do need to fast forward a little bit, so here we go. We'll start here. So turn 1, we're not going to do much. We're just going to send the 4 blues because we don't have an orb changer for that. But we're going to bring these units in. They have protection gauge and all that. We're going to send all 4 of the blues on the middle mushroom. Call it good. And now here's where things get a little interesting. So 1 hit, 2 hit, 3 hit. Alright, 1 damage there. That's good. 1 damage there is good. We got 53 points. Frey will give us another 40 when we use her. So we're going to attack buff with Shizu. And we're going to rewind here. We're going to use Frey, change all those to greens, give ourselves guaranteed crits on the hero and Shizu. And then we're also going to use the future hand of orange now. Not Millums, though, because I don't want the extra damage, even though only 1 unit would benefit from that being Millum. But I don't want that. I don't want extra damage. I want more gauge on oranges when they come in. So here, we're going to spread it out a little bit to make sure we don't kill anybody early. We want to nuke all 3 mushrooms. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So we got the middle one very low. He cannot take another hit. And we've gotten this one fairly low. But we have 1 alt for Shizu. We need the EX alt, though. And because we have a full hand of oranges that are gauge buffed, this 6 hand, even though we only have 2 orbs for her, this will get us the EX alt. So now we just need to take our pick and where are we going to hit, right? But there we go. We have the EX alt. We have 100 points. We have another Protector Frey. And we have spread the damage out quite well to where everyone is still alive. And now we're going to nuke on turn 3 with, the big time buffs. That was very, very lucky that we did not kill on that counter, but it does do, more damage. So it works out for us. So we're going to do buff. So cheap Millum buff, cheap Hinata buff. And then when we use Frey, we get another 40 points, which will put us at 60, and that will allow us to use Wind Millum. We don't need to use the hero at all, because we're already getting crit from Frey, and we just need Millum because she's got the double buff, the alt damage and the crit damage here. So here, we can't do anything else except use the skill, and then nuke. And we actually do pretty good damage here. So nuke does how much a hit? How much? Yeah, no, we can't swap anybody else in, so just nuke, send it, and 322. So not quite as much as the first team, but it's still a decent amount, right? So we do 1 million damage, so there we go. That's the second team. You can use it. It is full of more EX units and skill-fused Millum, but if you've got it, you've got it, and you can just kind of, or if you don't got it, you use something very close to it. Let's move on to team number 3. Alright, the next team I got her to 120, so you bet your sweet ass I'm going to use her. EX Souka will be our nuker on this run. We're going to bring the Wielder of Magic Protector Millum, giving all magic allies Pierce, and then changing to 6 oranges, giving us 40 skill points. We've got Dark Millum for the alt buff, we've got Rain for the magic buff and the green buff, if we can use it, which we will, because we're going to use the future hand from Souka. We've got the hero for the rewind, and then we've got Trainee with Dark Lumi. And the only reason these 2 are here is for protection gauge, because I want a double stack of Millum on the nuke turn. And the way to do that is by having these 2 units giving us protection gauge on turns 2 and 3. So that's why they're there. I don't use anything from Trainee. I don't use her wind buff. I don't use her alt rush. She's here to look pretty, which she definitely does. But let's go ahead and start this up. So here, we're going to take advantage of the rewind and the future hand of greens that are going to be buffed by Rain. So that's why we brought Rain instead of somebody else. You could bring Isis if you wanted to and have the turn 1 orb change. That totally works as well. It's just that I also want to use her magic buff, so yeah. And on turn 3, it will be max power. So here, we're going to bring Souka in for Millum. We're going to bring Trainee in for the hero, I believe. The hero? The Rain. Never mind. Alright, brought her in for Rain. Going to send the 4 blues on the middle mushroom. Again, that gets us a protection gauge. Awesome. and it'll give us 40 points off Milim. We'll be able to rewind, and we'll be able to use the future hand, kind of like what we did with the last team, but instead of a future hand of oranges, it's a future hand of greens. So we've kind of flip-flopped. So rewind, and then we'll bring rain in for the hero. Yes, the hero. Click the button, Jesus Christ. Green buff, there we go. And then when we use Milim, we'll get a whole hand of oranges, and that'll also give us 40 points, so we can use the future hand of greens, which since the rewind, it will kick in, and we won't have just like a Souka alt chilling anywhere. So just make sure to use the skill, and then spread the damage out a bit. So we've got 1, 2, 3, and then 4, 5, 6. Make sure everyone is quite low on HP, but not quite dead. It's not quite as low as I want them to be, but it does leave us a little bit of wiggle room for additional hits if we need to send them. But here's the rewind, and a future hand of greens that are fully buffed. We have 3 Souka orbs, which is great, because that gets us her EX alt. We're going to send 1, 2, 3, and then 4, 5, and 6. And we have full points. We have that little tiny bit of protector that's going to get covered with Trainee and Dark Lumi. So there is our double stack of protector, which will allow us to use all of our major buffs here now with the EX alt. So there we go, double stack protector, maximum points. We've still got a full hand of greens, which doesn't matter because we can't really send anything now. But we're going to take out Trainee because she doesn't serve any more purpose. We'll use the crit buff and lower the crit resistance. We'll bring Milim in for the hero, and then we'll use 1 stack of protector Milim, get more points, or we'll use something else first. Doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter the order as long as you use all the skills. So there's the guaranteed pierce, at least for Souka. Here's the alt buff, boom. And then 1 more stack of Milim will allow us to use both the Souka buff and the rain buff. So the Souka buff isn't at max power. It's at like 30% or something. Yeah, 30% attack. And then the rain buff is 40% magic damage and 20% magic down on 1 enemy. So we're going to hit that enemy harder than the other 2. But the nuke, 237... So not quite as good as the third team with Shizu, and definitely not as good as the first team with the New Year's team, but it's still decent damage. You almost do 1 million. One thing is that if you don't want to bring Dark Milim and you have a skill-fused Wind Milim, like the old one, who's giving alt damage plus the Wind crit damage, you actually will increase your damage probably very close to 1 million, because you do about, instead of 237, you do about 277. So another 40k damage per hit, and that will definitely push you closer to 1 million, but that's if you have access to a skill-fused Wind Milim. But there we go. That is the third team, and now we'll move on to the very last sad team that I attempted to use, and it didn't go very well. Alright, the last team is the Fount of Wisdom team, and I've heard that this can work. It didn't really work that well for me, though, because Hinata just does way too much damage. I took all the weapons off. I took Souka's weapon off, and I'm still at 11.2, and she still murders everything. So I mean, this is a very sad run. But if you've got the Fount of Wisdom team plus the Visions of Coleus Rimuru, then yeah, it can quote unquote work. It's just very funky. Like, you need a lot of good RNG because you can only go 3 turns before they stun you. So in 3 turns, you need to build up a stacking team. So we don't get an EX ult. I get 2 single targets instead, which doesn't do that much damage, surprisingly. But we do have a turn 1 orb change, so we got a full hand of blues. We'll bring Hinata in, we'll bring Rimuru in for Albus. Now we have to make sure that we send Hinata first, because she's doing 200% orbs on these guys that are going to murder them. So we do consistently less and less damage with every orb we send. But it leaves him quite low. Okay, fine. We're nowhere close to an EX ult. And we're on a stacking blue team, which doesn't give us a lot of ult gauge. And we have no one to rush our ult either, right? I have the ult charm on Diablo to give gauge to Hinata, and that's pretty much the only way we can really make this work. Unless you magically get a butt ton of Hinata orbs, or Rimuru orbs. If you're going to nuke with Rimuru on an AoE, you could do either or. Here we go for 2 single targets. You could go for Rimuru's AoE. It doesn't really matter. It's just how you want to run it. So here, We're going to bring Rimuru in for his orb change and the rainbow, because when we rainbow all the blues, we can send all 6 of them. We'll put the alt resistance down debuff on all 3 of the mushrooms twice. But, you know, Diablo being the first EX protector and stacking, he stacks at 30, and it's just not good. It's just not good. Diablo was, you know, game-changing when he came out last February. He's almost a year old, which is crazy that EX Diablo is almost a year old at this point. But time flies, right? So we'll send 5 orbs, and then we'll kill the middle orb, since we are only going to plan on nuking 1 here. So we can freely kill 2 of them. But we want the middle one gone, because he has the attack buff. So the less damage you take, the better. AoE, AoE, fine. And now we have 2 alts, and it's turn 3. We have 160 points. So it means we can use 2 big-time buffs on this team, and 1 more stack of Diablo. So I decide that physical Rimuru's buff is better than Albus's, which it is. So we're going to use the physical buff from Rimuru, and then the attack buff / personal alt buff for Hinata. And then we'll each nuke a mushroom. And, you know, that's pretty much all we can do here. So we'll bring Coleus Rimuru in for Fount of Wisdom Rimuru, just so we can lower the HP on that right mushroom a bit, and then we can nuke it. We can't send any Hinata orbs, because she will straight up kill them outright. So 1, 2... Does have super weak point, though, so 320k for Hinata, and 118 for Albus, who doesn't have any gear on. So, I mean, I didn't expect great things out of that. But our score is 45-7. It's not super great, but, you know, it's not the worst thing in the world either. Definitely nowhere close to damage cap, but it can work. But there are 4 teams for Normal Battle 2. If you have any different teams, let me know. Put them in the comments so other people can see that and take advantage. And also let me know if this video helped you out, because I do appreciate, you know, the feedback. But that's it from me, guys. Take it easy, and I'll see you all later.